Yo,
How are you?
I'm doing all right.
That's good.
Yeah, how was your all your interviews and stuff this last week?
Oh man, I made it through 5 out of 6 rounds, and they went with another candidate.
Oof,
Yeah,
damn. I
so
mean, I'm sure that's still like valid experience, right? Like,
yeah, it was helpful. I got to experience a tech interview, so that's good. I've never had one before.
oh, nice. What was it like?
They just because it just depends on the company. This one
Yeah.
was the team lead and the senior dev
Mhm.
just asking me rapid fire questions,
Whoa.
just back and forth of like, oh, you have this experience. Explain how you do this. Explain how you do this. Oh, what about if you do this? And I panicked.
That
So
sounds a little intense. Yeah.
I didn't do well. Like my brain just could not. And like I left it and I looked it up and I'm just like, oh, I know how to do this. I know how to, that's what they were
Yeah.
asking. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't, it was just one of those things that I still have to like Google. Like it was one of the question is explain the difference between a for each and a dot map.
Mm.
And like I know the basic difference, but I still need to like Google it to make sure I like execute it right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But like I know like a dot map is chainable and a for each is not, and that's like the biggest difference I always remember. But
Hmm.
I always have to look up because
Yeah.
dive deep.
Yeah. Well, the dot map changes the array. I feel like that's the thing to remember
Dot map
for the
change.
future.
Yeah.
Yeah, for each doesn't change the array. Well, actually, that's not true. Dot map returns a new array, I guess.
Uh-huh.
But yeah,
That makes sense.
that,
Dot map returns to new array. Yeah, that makes sense.
but yeah, wow. I mean, I still haven't experienced the technical interview yet, so I'm
It's
always
crazy.
interested hearing people's experiences. I mean, it sounds like it is just totally different depending
It's
on
the
where
company.
you're interviewing. Yeah.
Exactly. And like another thing, because I'm full stack. So they're
Mhm.
like, if you're doing a SQL table, like what are some of the first like commands that you would like put in? And I'm like,
Mhm.
I have not done backend in 2 months.
Oh man, yeah,
I
I would have to
couldn't,
look that up for sure.
I cannot remember. So I'm like, after like all this is done and my other thing is done, I'm like, I'm just gonna start doing backend projects again
Yep.
and like make sure like double check and like I'm just gonna like try to create like another just like full stack app, like just one, just something easy to see if I remember how to do everything.
Totally.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it was crazy. It was great, but it was crazy.
It really sounds crazy, man. Just rapid fire questions.
It's insane. But and so it goes. It's okay. They they the only reason why they didn't go with me, they said they like liked me and they think I have like a great personality and stuff and that I would do well
Hmm.
in the dev world, but like this position they were hiring for is like a newer position. They're trying to build up the company a little bit more.
Yeah.
And they went with somebody that had a little bit more experience with what they're using
Yeah.
because
That's tough.
they're like you'll probably because they told me they're like you'd probably pick it up, but we need somebody who has a better idea of what they're doing from the get-go with like Angular and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just like,
Yeah,
okay,
that's tough. I mean, it
that's
makes sense, but
it's valid,
yeah, totally.
but it's okay. And so it goes. I've been taking a break this weekend and then I'm gonna
That's
start
smart.
fresh.
Yeah. Those breaks are important. No
Yeah.
joke.
Yeah. This one, the collab and the other thing I'm in ends this week. So I'm just like, I'm just gonna focus on some code and then start fresh Saturday
Yep.
on job applying.
Yep. Yeah, I need to apply to more places. Man, the job hunt is just
It's
so brutal.
It is so brutal. It done do be like that.
Good morning.
Excited.
Good
Oh,
morning.
what's up, Shireen?
What are you excited for?
Oh, just for the start doing some like CSS styling on the issues.
Yeah.
this coming week.
Me too. I'm excited about that too.
I am also very stoked. Can one of you do me a solid favor?
Mhm.
And when you pull from Maine, can I see what the local host looks like? Hey,
I
Alex.
already have mine up if you want me
Yeah,
to.
mine's pulled.
Yeah, can I see
Okay.
that real quick? I was curious about something.
Okay. Tim, am I doing it? I guess I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
Go for it.
So,
Oh yeah, are you wondering whether it doesn't look like the delete item thing is there? If
Yeah.
that's what you're questioning.
That's what I was questioning.
Yeah.
So, because I was like wondering, I'm like, when we did the merge conflicts, did we accidentally not merge in our delete function?
Doesn't look like it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm not updating mine yet.
Cool. I think I still have
Okay.
that branch in my machine too.
Yeah, okay, cool. Then I'm just gonna keep mine as is. Okay, yeah, that's all I wanted to know because I was re-looking through the code. on our-
Yeah, I
and
guess I
was
should
like,
have
oh.
actually checked it before I merged it. I thought everyone was saying it was good to go. So
No, it's good. No,
Well,
no.
remember
all.
the other day when we were with Andy Serrani and I had said, or someone had said, we're missing the delete button. And we were like, I don't know, I feel like we had mentioned it, but then I don't know. I guess we just thought maybe
think-
because we were on a different branch or something. I don't know.
I think we mentioned it and then proceeded to like be like, yeah, that's an issue. Pauses. Okay.
Maybe that was
yeah.
Oh no. Oh no.
So
It's okay. At least we have that branch and we can do a remerge. Oh, I guess I will come up too.
Yeah, it's like Andy said, nothing's really lost. It's there. We just have to
Yeah.
go back to another point in
It's
time.
It's okay. I have the old main, so for issue 11, and that's the one I'm demoing. So at least all of our code is still in this one.
what's up, Alex?
Oh, yeah. Oh, your sound's
I think
off.
you're muted.
Okay.
That'll happen.
It always happens on Google for me.
Yeah, it always happens on Google, my video or my microphone.
You know, I have to always go back into my settings and
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
same here. Do you have a Mac too? Is that because we have a Mac, or is that just because it's Google?
I have a window. No, it's because it's Google because I have
Okay.
I have a Lenovo. It's an issue for sure. Google is just they're too powerful. They don't have to be good anymore because they're so needed.
Good morning, Alex.
Yeah, he's still fixing his mic.
Yeah, I feel bad I didn't even say good morning to him.
Okay. Good luck. Y'all,
Oh,
I'm
it's
so
like the Zoom etiquette. Like, you know how I don't know. Normally, like if we were all in a room, we'd be like, "Hey, what's up?" You know. And now
Yeah.
it's like I don't know what the etiquette is for Zoom calls. Still learning this whole virtual world,
Yeah.
digital world.
Oh man. Y'all, I'm so tired. I stayed up late working on code for my other team.
How's it going? Did you
I-
have to like, you fixed a lot of stuff or?
Yeah, I got
Mhm.
it. I got it going. It was I was like doing the hamburger menu, which I've never have created one before. And I got the toggle working.
Nice,
That opens and
nice,
closes. I'm so excited.
Sweet.
nice. That's exciting. Even though it's like, you're like, it's one small thing, but still that's huge.
It was a needed thing. And then I went back through and like cleaned up some stuff, and then um they're doing a weird way to call the API. So I just went back through and like looked at how they were doing it and just kept the code the same to recall stuff on different APIs. This would lack. I think we have some styling issues to do after this meeting, but that's okay.
Are you like redoing it just locally on your own, or did your partner, is she open to you like
No,
like is she open? No, okay.
we're done. No, this is the last week. We're gonna right after this demo, I get like a 30-minute breather, and then we start filming our whole project.
Wow.
Yeah. Very tired.
Hello?
Hello.
We can hear you.
You hear me now? I don't know what happened. I just like it just stopped seeing my mic.
That's weird.
So it's just me this week because Scott's on his honeymoon and I think as you guys saw, his laptop got completely destroyed, so he's not here.
That
Yeah.
is bad luck.
Yes, bad luck. And then Andy couldn't make it today, so you're stuck with me.
Perfect. We love you. So here we
Yeah.
go.
So I think we start off with demos. So who wants to go first?
I can go first since I'm doing issue 11.
Sounds good.
Share. Okay, so for issue 11, I believe this is the one where we had to add in a delete button so that way the user can go in and delete an item off their list. We imported in the delete doc from Firebase, and then we created a function that will take in the ID. And if the user is going to delete it, we just have a window confirm come up that like double checks that that's what they want to delete. And then we await the delete doc thing that comes in from Firebase. And it's going to take in like the doc with the database, the token, and the ID. And then we call that function down in a button in our little map. It just on the button is like on delete, it deletes the doc.id. And to show you what that looks like, honey, poop, and then go back to the list. And then if you look over in the Firestore, now we have bread and honey. And if I go here and delete honey, our thing pops up. Yeah, so I like to delete that. And now there's just bread.
Awesome. Yeah.
So that's our delete.
Pretty easy ticket. Not
Yeah.
basic stuff. Cool.
Okay, so issue 12, Tim and I are splitting it. I'm gonna do, because it was kind of big, I'm gonna do the sort. I'll share my screen. And obviously, Tim and Sarani, if I miss something or I misspeak, just chime in. Okay, so the user needs to be able to view the shopping list from the database in alphabetical order, as well as view their list in order of how soon they are likely to need to repurchase each item. So the first thing we did was we created a hooks directory to store custom components. And we created a use snapshot function that stores our use effect in it. So we moved our use effect here. And we, inside our query statement, we are now ordering by item name. So we included that in the snapshot that's going to display the items to the list page, which I have over here on the left. And okay, and then, sorry, and then in our list component, we included a sort method in the JSX that's going to sort so not only is it sorted in alphabetical order, it's also sorted in, or ordered by alphabetical order, it's also sorted by the purchase frequency. And the sort method works by comparing element A to element B. So we have some logic here. If A dot purchase frequency is less than B dot purchase frequency, then it's going to return -1. And pretty much what that means is A element's going to move towards the top and the B element's going to move towards the bottom, and then of the list. And then if A dot purchase frequency is greater than B, then it's going to be the opposite. The A element's going to move further down the list and B is going to move up. And return 0 means that A and B are both equal. So they just will stay the same. And you can see that over here, it's sorted by purchase frequency, and then within the purchase frequency, it's sorted by alphabetical order. And I don't know if it might be kind of confusing here, but I checked the database, and the things on top are the ones that have a 0 purchase frequency, or they're less than 2. And then the things on bottom are greater than either 7 or 14, which is the purchase frequency.
Cool. Yeah, this will make sense to me. This is great.
Okay.
Sweet. So I'll take over for the other part of issue 12. I'll just share my screen here. Yeah, so that was the styling of the items, which I guess my current, which list are you using, Shireen?
I was using Andy's that she had created, Haley Bouncy Woody. And I used that because we had kind of practiced, like the other day during office hours, we manipulated the purchase frequency and estimated dates to try to change the colors. So that's why I was using that one.
Yeah, no, that seems like a good one for me to use. Sorry. Haley Bouncy Woody. Hey, all right. Yeah, so the other part of issue 12 was to style the items kind of according to purchase frequencies. And so you can see in our span here, which is around the item name, that we have actually 2 functions being kind of used. First, we're setting the color of the item using the style checkbox function, which I will just go up to that real quick. Checkbox, which is here. And so this is basically using kind of 4 different layers of logic to return the correct color for the string. So the first layer is the inactive layer, which is represented by this function here, which inactive has kind of 2 different logic possibilities. If there's only 1 purchase in the database, it's considered inactive. And then if the time elapsed since purchase is twice the purchase frequency, or something, yeah, I think that was the right thing to say, then it's also inactive. So this function just kind of encapsulates both of those things in one place. And then, yeah, we call it if inactive, it's going to return black, which is just the normal color. If the purchase frequency is less than 7, which is what we consider our purchase soon, it's going to be green. If it's less than 14, which is our kind of soon, it's going to be orange. And then otherwise, that means it's going to be purchased later, and that'll be a red color. And since we are kind of using color as like a functionality, it's obviously important to include an area label that represents the same thing. And so we effectively copied this function out, and now are just returning kind of a informative string instead of a color. So once again, not purchased is our inactive. Our soon is less than 7 days. Kind of soon is less than 14 days. And then our later is 30 days. And so, yeah, that kind of, I think, just is working well at this point. So
Awesome. Yeah, no, this is all really good. This is all really super good work. Well, I don't have any questions, so unless we have anything else you guys want to talk about, we can move on to the thing I have to do.
Yeah, no, I think it looks like our merge didn't go
Saw that.
quite correctly, but I think we'll be able to deal with that later, no problem.
Just fix it up
Yeah.
before you move on to anything else. I heard what you guys were saying as I was trying to get my stupid work.
Cool.
Guys, see my slideshow screen? So this week we're talking about accessibility and kind of the what, why, and how. A very common thing you'll see in particularly the web world is accessibility ends up getting abbreviated to this A11Y. The 11 stands for the 11 letters in between A and Y of accessibility. It's incredibly clever and super fancy and not really, but most of the time in web you'll see ally like this, and that's true of like npm packages, anything that's accessibility. Almost all the time they do it with this abbreviation. So kind of the Wikipedia definition is web accessibility is the inclusive practice of ensuring there are no barriers that prevent interaction with or access to websites on the World Wide Web, which is, you can see how dated this definition is because I can't remember the last time someone's called the web the World Wide Web. Pretty old. Websites on the World Wide Web by people with physical disabilities, situational disabilities, and social economic restrictions. So something a lot of people don't think about when they think about accessibility is a lot of times you think of someone who's blind or who's deaf or who has a more physical disability. But there are situational disabilities that we'll talk about that are like you broke your arm, so you're not permanently disabled, you're just disabled for 6 weeks or something. And then there's socioeconomic restrictions where you may not have access to good internet. And part of accessibility is that your website is available to everyone no matter what. So how fast your website loads is actually a very big part of accessibility and something that people forget about. When sites are correctly designed, developed, and edited, generally all users have equal access to information functionality. So again, the main idea behind accessibility is that your website works for literally every single person who comes on your site, no matter what they got going on in their life. So if you guys don't know this, there is a group called the W3C that is kind of in charge of the internet. They're the ones that make the decisions on if we get new functionality, and in a lot of ways kind of just dictate the standards, and part of their organization, they dictate web accessibility and, have targets of what you should be hitting as an organization, and have really nice spec sheets of like, if you can check off these 10 things, your website's good kind of deal. So that's always a very good resource, is the W3C stuff, which I'm sure you'll run into all the time as you're working. Some people with disabilities access websites using kind of a whole host of technologies. So these are screen readers, screen magnifiers, speech input, assistive keyboards, and braille displays. So there's about 1 million different ways people use the site. And so it's just really important that you kind of test all of that to a certain extent. Obviously, some of these are a lot harder than others to test when you don't have access to like a braille display, but it just comes down to, there's always going to be a testing tool out there somewhere that you can quickly run through, and it'll kind of let you know what's going on. And then some popular screen readers are NVDA and JAWS on Windows, and then VoiceOver, which is built into Mac, which are useful things. And it's something that I do at work every once in a while, is that you can just fire up the VoiceOver and have it read the page you're working on and kind of see how much of a disaster it is. And then you just got to quickly go through and fix it. So that's a very good practice, is to do VoiceOvers. The reason that we care about accessibility is that in general, it's just the right thing to do. And that's kind of what the community of the web has been pushing for a very long time, is that even though accessibility can be a big chunk of work, extra work, it's just the right thing to do, right? It helps everyone. It's just got to be done. It also, in a lot of cases, is legally required. Depending on your business, you have to follow a lot of accessibility rules. I came from Trek, the big bicycle corporation, and right as I started, they had just settled a lawsuit that they got sued for accessibility reasons on their website. So a huge portion of my job while I was there was implementing tons of accessibility onto the website because they just didn't do a good job the first time out of the gate. So in a lot of ways, websites are legally obligated, so you do have to be careful about that. And then number 3 is more people in the US access websites with assistive technology than actually live in Canada. So they estimate that, because of the population size, there's more people with some type of disability in the US using sites than just live in Canada. And then again, the estimate of 20% of visitors across the whole world have some sort of disability. So again, that's 20% of your website traffic. People need to have a little extra help than what a fully capable person can do. So, and that's big traffic and that's big money. So that's, again, making sure your site is accessible is part of a profit strategy. If your website is very accessible, then you're gonna make more money, period. And then making your pages more accessible to people with disability makes them more accessible for everyone. So again, a lot of the accessibility work you do to help people with disabilities ends up helping people who don't have disabilities anyways. So, because there's a lot of people who like to use your website with a keyboard and they don't actually use the mouse, and they're totally able, but that's just how they like to do it. And so by you already making your site totally workable from a keyboard, you're helping them too. So stuff like that. And then here's this kind of interesting chart that Microsoft put out that kind of explains what I was talking about, that situational kind of disability of like, permanent, temporary, situational. So a permanent disability could be someone who only has one arm, temporarily they break that arm. And then situational, they have, a new mother with a baby in her arms. So now she's got one arm to use your website. So there's just a lot of things you have to think about, that like there's a bigger spectrum of what we can consider disabled, even if, obviously a new mother isn't considered disabled, but it's just like, but she has the same issue as somebody who has one arm in that situation. So, that's what you have to kind of think about when you are working on your sites, is that there's just a really big spectrum of, what you have to cover for different reasons. So some kind of best practices is, a lot of accessibility is just built straight into the web. So if you just use semantic HTML, that covers you in a lot of ways. It gets a little more tricky with the single page apps and JavaScript. So there are things you have to sometimes include more of to help, but a lot of that now works correctly. Alt tags, I promise you, when you get into jobs, you will notice that no one uses alt tags. It's just littered all over the place. It's the number one thing I see not used on the web, is people always forget alt tags for images, especially because when you're working with big data sets and you're pulling, 2,000 images from a database, like that means someone has to go through and give an alt tag to those 2,000 images. And a lot of organizations just don't want to do it because it's difficult, but and in that case, a lot of times it just is left to the developer, where you put that image on the page and now you just write something in the alt tag that makes sense, and you just got to cover it. But alt tags are a big thing, and it's 100% the thing I see not used the most in my work. And then obviously ARIA attributes, which we saw in our last ticket that Tim used, which was fantastic. ARIA attributes are just kind of a way to cover non-standard semantic HTML when the time needs. And then ARIA attributes are kind of the way, especially with single page applications, that you fix a lot of the stuff that JavaScript kind of messes up with accessibility. So that's a really good thing to learn. Ensure all content is reachable by keyboard. It's another big one. And this is kind of a difficult one because there's kind of different standards for how you do it. So it's one of those situational things where you're going to have to look up like what letters, like what parts of the keyboards are people used to using. For Trek, I made their entire navigation menu accessible by the keyboard. And that was a big learning moment for me, because there was all these type of different situations where, well, what happens when you get to the bottom of the nav list? Where is it supposed to go? And, what are the keyboard shortcuts for opening up a drop-down menu inside of that navigation menu? And how do I navigate that? And how do I get out of it? How do I get back into it? But it's super important, because there's just a lot of people who need to use the keyboard only, and a lot of people who actually just use the keyboard. There's tons of people, I know a lot of developers that prefer to almost entirely use the keyboard and not use their mouse at all. And then ensure content and tab ordering makes sense. So tab ordering, again, a lot of the HTML elements have this built in where they will just naturally order themselves on the page. So as you tab through the page, it'll kind of jump element to element. But you can also do a tab index that can go on any HTML element, and you can tell it an order. And so when people are tabbing on your page, you can actually control where that tab goes based by the tab index. And this is a really useful thing if you want things to be skipped in the tab, or just read in a different order kind of thing, if your layout wants that. And then another one is use of sufficient color contrast. This is something I see all the time where, you have really light lettering on a white background and it's like, oh, this is part of my design and it's great. And then, someone who is seeing impaired comes to your site and it's just blank, like there's just nothing for them. Or even just, other significant color things like people who are colorblind. 1 in 4 men have a hard time seeing red and green. So you have to kind of keep stuff like that in mind. And there's a lot of tools, some of them put out by W3C, where you can, put your background color in and then put your text color or whatever your complement color is, and it'll rate it and be like, hey, we actually think if you go 10% darker, that'll get you the accessibility standards that you need. So those are really great tools. And then number 7 is don't only use color to signify state. So this is actually, again, a perfect example of what Tim did, is that we were using color to do the state of the menu items, but he put in an accessibility ARIA tag to make sure that when a screen reader hit those items, it understood what those colors meant and it would read out loud in the screen reader what those colors meant. So that's a fantastic example, and is just exactly what needs to happen to make the world a better place. So again, kind of like the how is like automation tools. In this case, they put in Axe, but there's just a lot of good ally automation tools. At my job, I use Lighthouse, where you can get Lighthouse scores of the page, and part of that is accessibility, where I'll go through your page and be like, hey, you're missing labels on these inputs, you're missing some ARIA tags here, could you fix that? And just kind of up that score and kind of gamify it. There's guided audits, so accessibility insights, which we could click into. So again, there's just a lot of automation tools, and there's a lot of even products out there where you can go to companies and say, hey, can you take a look at our site, audit it, tell me what we got to fix, and they've got tools to help you do it. And then, and like I said, there are just tons of companies, audits by accessibility testing companies. So there are whole companies just designed to go through your website and tear it apart and tell you, how good or bad you're doing and what you need to fix. And again, those companies will help you meet standards, because again, depending on the industry you're in, you're going to have higher or lower standards. There are different tiers of accessibility that the W3C puts out, and some of them are really basic standards, like, hey, you need to have alt tags to meet these requirements for your industry. And then there's like the medical industry, like a hospital's website has much more stringent rules on accessibility, and they're held to a higher standard. So in a lot of cases, the hospitals have to use these companies to make sure their website stays to that standard. And then just a bunch of resources at the end that I'll make sure I post this slide so you guys can look at it. But yeah, so this web content accessibility guideline, it's super dry, and there's better resources to like kind of give it all, but this is the web spec standard, and it kind of just talks about the guidelines of what you need to do. what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and kind of a checklist of what you got to do for your site. I believe that's all I got. Anyone got questions? What's kind of like your guys's so far running with accessibility? Did you do like run into it in boot camps or?
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty well preached, at least as like somebody who's learning it in the last couple of years. Like I feel like it's a really important part of like you're just like learning it along with just the normal stuff at this point. At least that was my experience.
That's really good because that was not my experience when I started as a web dev. Accessibility was not, and my first job was at a major university, and it still wasn't even really talked about. And a public university is held to one of the higher standards of web accessibility. So even at my job as a major university at the time, it was not really a big thing. So it's good to hear.
At my boot camp, it was like mentioned, but I was blessed to have a TA that like deep dived into web accessibility, and like she made sure that we kind of like had an idea what it was, and she gave us some resources for it. And every time she would grade our stuff, it was like, just to let you know it's not accessible. And she like added bonus points to our stuff if we made it as accessible as possible.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a good teacher.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, accessibility is a big thing, and it's becoming bigger and bigger as we kind of as a society become more inclusive, which is always a good thing. Cool. Yeah, so this done. You're done. So we're on to issues, and that's our last issue, which is, as a user, I want the app to look professional and welcoming. So the last 2 weeks of the project, so it'll be this week and next week, I guess. It's just going to be this one ticket, and it's going to be, so I'll read it. So the last 2 weeks of the project will function a little differently than the rest. Your team will self-organize around a lightweight design process to come up with a polished look and feel for your app. So again, this whole time we've just been working on functionality. In fact, you guys have pretty much finished the functionality of the site, but as we all can tell, it's pretty ugly. So this will require the team to make decisions together to implement kind of a design process. So again, it's going to be up to you three to figure out what you want it to look like. So we've got again, the mentors are here to help you. Andy and I specifically are both front-end developers. So if you guys need to get some CSS help or you want help picking a framework, because frameworks are totally allowed, you guys don't have to do raw CSS. If you want to pull in some type of React framework, or, you know, I use Tailwind at work a lot. Tailwind's great. You totally can. So they have, that was just a visual example. It's not what I want. So step one, kind of in the design process, is what is the tone you're going for? What feeling are you trying to convey? Come up with 3 to 5 words to best capture how you want users to perceive your app. So this is kind of just a basic, like, how to design. So example, fun, clean, business-like, you know, whatever. And then create a mood board. A mood board helps everyone get on the same page in terms of direction which you want to take. Add elements to your mood board that represent the tone you're trying to achieve. I've never seen a mood board, so I don't know what that is. Let's find out. Yeah, it's just a design board of just like, you know, if you wanted to completely go custom and decide how you want everything to work with each other, you can kind of create these visual design boards. Typography is going to be a big thing right now. We're just using the standard web font, which is garbage. No one uses it. So picking a Google font will be a fantastic thing for you guys to do. Picking colors, it's totally up to you guys how you want to do the colors. Same with imagery. If we're going to add any extra images, you know, are we going to put a fake logo on the website? Are we going to do a header and footer? You know, how are we going to cover that kind of stuff? You know, you guys are going to have to decide if you want to do CSS from scratch, or again, you can use a CSS framework if you want. Totally up to you guys. Yeah, so I mean, that's, you guys have any kind of questions? I think probably a good way to go about it is the first week. You're gonna want to kind of, you know, pick your fonts, pick your colors, decide if you're going to do raw CSS or a framework. If you're going to do a framework, let's get it imported into the project and let's get it up and running. And then it's just going to be up to you guys to kind of set goals of, you know, what are we going to tackle in the next 2 weeks kind of thing, to get it clean. Pretty open ticket, and typically in a work environment this would get split up into like 40 different tickets kind of thing, and you'd pick at it smallly, but just because of the time constraints, we're throwing it in one ticket, we're going to nail it. You guys have any questions?
One of the things we actually did last week was we made a branch where we refactored some of our components to try to make them into, you know, smaller React components. So it's not just like these huge epic pages. So yeah, we turned like the list item into its own component. And I think we'll probably do that on a couple of other things. With those kinds of branches, should we just like throw those PRs up as we have them?
Yeah, I would. Yeah. Because that would just be, again, typical workflow as any kind of new work goes into a PR.
Yep.
But that's good. That's great that you guys are kind of looking at your code and going, we can do better kind of thing. Because that's absolutely, I do that all the time, and a lot of times I will do my work, get it working, and then before I even do a PR, I just refactor the whole thing, because it's, you know, you spend a lot of time making it work, but then when you look at your code later, you're like, well, this works, but it's horrible, I can't read it. So that's great. That's fantastic that you guys are, especially in the kind of component world, the smaller the components you can make, the easier it is to manage, to test, to maintain, to style. So small components are great. And it's something that you run into at work all the time, is you'll come in and there'll be like 2,000 line React components. And you're like, what's happening here? Why is this a thing? So that's great. Yeah. So if no one has any questions, again, totally up to you guys how you want to kind of tackle this. But my suggestion is, again, pick your typography this week, what font you're going to use, you know, figure out your colors, and then figure out, you know, if you're going to do a framework or not. And then if you are, pick your framework and kind of get going on it. And again, Andy and I will be really good resources for kind of any of this help if you guys need it. But you guys are killing it. You guys don't need us. Coolio. Well, if there's nothing else, we can get out of here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, it was just me this week.
No, it's
It's
chill.
all good.
Yeah, it was good.
All right. Have a nice weekend.
Bye.
Bye, guys.